Hi there, I'm Angie Carpenter, Islip Town Supervisor, welcoming you to this edition of Supervisor Spotlight. We are here in the studios at Long Island MacArthur Airport. Long Island News Radio is very gracious to allow us to use their studio. And we're here today, and I'm so delighted to have with us our Director of Labor Relations and our Personnel Director and our Safety Officer, Arthur Abadi. Arthur, thank you so much for joining us today.
Angie, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm hoping that today we can delve a little bit into the world of being a personnel director, director of human relations. I mean, there are a lot of titles for the kind of function out there in both the governmental public sector and in the private sector. And it really is a very unique kind of skill set that you have to bring to that position to be effective. And I hope I'm not going to embarrass you, but you really do bring that to us in the town of Islip. I joke sometimes that Arthur is like Father Confessor. People go to him with their concerns, with their issues, whether they be job-related or not, and have that sense of talking to someone, having a sounding board, and speaking to someone confidentially and getting, sometimes you just need to have somebody to talk to.
And we do spend a bit of time counseling folks. Yes, I agree with you.
But you enjoy it, do you
I do.
not?
I really do. I think if we can make a difference, I think that's what really matters. Our folks work very hard out there, and I think that they all encounter a number of problems. Many of them have homes and families and, job issues and things like that. So if they come on in and we, talk out whatever's bugging them, whatever issues we have, I'm only too happy to try to help them resolve it.
It not only helps them personally, but it puts them in a better place to do their job, to deliver the services, to the residents of the town of Islip. And those services are so varied. The kinds of positions, if anyone is ever interested in working for a municipality, we like to think of Islip Town as being one of the nicer ones to work for. But tell us the kind of positions. Give people an idea of what's out there.
Wow, we have such a tremendous variety of positions out there from folks. I mean, we have a number of areas like you would normally expect in a town. We have the Public Works Department. We have an airport, which is very unique for the town of Islip. We have areas that do like parks and recreation, and we have folks that clean up the garbage, and we have animal control, and we have folks that keep us safe in our parks, our park rangers. There's just a very broad range of people here. We have people here who do public relations. We have a town attorney's office, so for attorneys out there, there literally is a very, very broad spectrum. We collect the taxes, we handle your building issues. If you want a building permit, or you're having an issue in your neighborhood where maybe somebody isn't quite in compliance, you can come on into our building department and deal with it there. We have folks that deal with problems in the building area, like swimming pools with no fences around them and things like that. So very, very broad spectrum of services that we provide, and we're very serious about providing excellent services to the community.
Well, it's so true. I see that on a day-to-day basis, the incredible commitment on the part of those that work in the town of Islip. And, sometimes those that work in the public sector get a bum rap, that they don't really care and they're just, biding their time. But I cannot tell you the extraordinary level of commitment and caring that I've seen with our town employees. We just came through a very incredibly wonderful project, and that is something that we partner with a not-for-profit agency, Food for Hope. And there were many, many volunteers and a lot of employees who volunteered their time, especially from the Parks Department, and the various departments all contributed. And we were able to assemble 572 food baskets.
That's amazing.
Food for hope, and give people that sense of hope who might be, finding hard times right now. In addition, 580 turkeys. So, and I was down there as they were being distributed and seeing the joy on the faces of those volunteers and those town employees that were working on this project, such a pride that they had in what they were able to accomplish in a short period of time.
There's actually another project out there right now that your office is getting behind and sponsoring, and that is there's a little Christmas tree in the supervisor's office where the employees are coming in and taking little angels off the Christmas tree, and where children who need assistance can come in and they write down exactly what their sizes are, what their wish is, and our employees have been lined up trying to just to be able to give those kind of gifts to children who need it in the community. And I just think it's wonderful, and it speaks to the quality of people we have in the town.
It's true. That is a program that is run by the Salvation Army, and we started with 50 angels, and within 3 or 4 days they were gone. And they're from infants to, older teenagers, and it'll have a name on it, a first name, and their sizes, and if it's a toy they want or a game they want, sometimes a bicycle, and people are taking them, and they're going out there, getting those gifts, wrapping those gifts, putting the names on the gifts of the individual child. And as I said, we went through 50, and now we've got a waiting list and are waiting to get some more.
It's nice. I remember one specifically, the one I took the little girl wants. She wants a Minnie Mouse doll. So I'm going to be going out after the weekend and getting her a Minnie Mouse doll. And it just gives me great thrill to be able to, maybe just touch one child in a nice way and make their Christmas wonderful, And another one kind of touched me in a different way. Of course, it was for an infant, and you could see where the mom might have filled it out. And she's looking for Pampers.
Pampers,
And so they're up against it. It's tight. So, to be able to affect that family and that child in such a positive way. I said to the person who took it, if it was me, I'd probably go to Sam's Club or Price Club or one of those places and just get a case of diapers. And they said that's exactly what we're going to do. And her husband. So it's kind of nice to see.
It really, really is. And when you put people in that frame of mind. They go back to their desks. They go back to their equipment, their truck, whatever it is that they may encounter over the course of the day in delivering their duties or their services to our residents. It puts them in a better place, emotionally, and helps them perform their duties with a better sense about themselves.
I think it's also important to note that happy folks do a better job. Happy folks will contribute and jump in on those kind of things. And I don't mean happy that, they come to work and it's a cakewalk, because they're all working really hard. We have a fraction of the number of employees in the town now that they used to have in past administrations. The town has gone through some tough times in terms of trying to keep taxes under control and zero budgets and all that kind of stuff, while inflation was still affecting the town. And our folks they're rising to every challenge we throw at them. So it really is a source of pride for myself, and I'm certain yourself, because
it's great. It really is. And, you talk about the number of employees. I've been told that in past years, and I've only been there a year and a half, that there were as many as 1,400 employees in the town of Islip many, many years ago, and 1,000 employees in the not-so-distant past. And now we hover at about 800. About 800, and that number swells with part-time employees in the summertime. But still in all, when you think of the sheer volume of services, and I think you touched on it when you talked about the kinds of jobs that are out there in the town, but the kinds of services that are delivered, 1,200 miles of road that have to be swept and paved and cleared and plowed and potholes filled, that alone, in all of our parks and the buildings, our infrastructure, town hall, there's an awful lot that has to be taken care of, and our employees do it.
And for many years, our physical facilities were actually kind of people didn't pay great attention to keeping them up. And right now, we're going through an initiative through our Public Works Department. Tom Owens is doing a phenomenal job of trying to bring these things back.
Yeah.
So it's doing really well.
Well, we'll come back in a few minutes and we'll talk a little bit more about that. We just approved a capital program, so we'll talk a little bit about that when we return to this edition of Supervisor Spotlight. I thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you in a few. Welcome back to Supervisor Spotlight here in the studios at 103.9 Radio at Long Island MacArthur Airport. And with us in the studio today, we have Arthur Abadi, who is the Director of Personnel, Labor Relations, and our Safety Officer. You know, we were talking a little bit before we took a break about the number of employees we have in the town and the enormity of the tasks, keeping our buildings up to code and keeping our streets plowed and paved. And we did take a major step just yesterday. The town board met and we were able to adopt our capital program for next year, for 2017. And that is just that. It's a capital program, it's a plan, a wish list, if you will, of the kinds of projects that need to be done, that we'd like to see done. Unfortunately, they're not all going to be done. A lot of times we will put things into the capital plan, hoping that we were able to parlay that into getting some grant money, because you've got to show that the project is seriously under consideration to qualify for grant money a lot of times. So again, it is a plan. It was $46 million, and certainly we won't be appropriating that kind of money. Not that we couldn't use it. We could probably use twice as much, but you need to be practical. And when we do go to the bond market, before we do, that comes back to the town board. We examine each and every project that we are going to consider appropriating the funding for. And again, those have to be projects that are ready to go. And generally, we'll do 2 borrowings over the course of a year. It's not all done at once, working closely with bond counsel. And given the fact that the ratings, we have the highest rating a municipality can have, AAA, it gives us an opportunity to borrow money at incredibly competitive rates.
Yeah, like just over 1%, right?
We just did a refunding of $18 million, and we're able to do it at 1.14%, where we were paying close to actually anywhere from 3.5% to 5% on some of that $18 million. So by refinancing it, not taking the debt out any longer, but keeping it to the term that it was existing, we were able to save well over $1 million.
And it's not like a mortgage, I heard yesterday.
No.
It doesn't go out of 30 years.
No,
right?
It does not. We repay our debt generally within 14 years. This debt in particular, I believe there's only about 8 years left on it.
That's fantastic.
So, and we've probably gotten to refinancing everything we possibly can, but it's a very interesting science, if you will. Our controller does an incredible job. But let's talk a little bit more about you and your varied roles. Certainly, I guess everyone can understand what the personnel director does. When people are looking for employment,
Sure.
They will contact your office through the website, phone. How do they get to you? What if someone really so much wants to come work for the town of Islip? What should they do?
Well, there's a couple of different ways. There's a couple of different avenues. Probably the best avenue is to go through the civil service process.
Well, aren't most of our positions are covered by civil service, and that is like a whole science. That's a whole other world that a lot of people aren't familiar with, and very, very strict criteria, and we are absolutely scrupulous in adhering to that every step of the way. Certainly, in my office, all of the commissioners and you and your staff make sure we do. And you work in concert with Alan Schneider, who's
Yes,
the
I do.
Suffolk County Commissioner and been there for many years, and probably one of the most recognized experts in the field of civil service.
Very much so. We're always looking for good talent. And I would encourage people out there to go on the Suffolk County Civil Service website, and they have announcements of tests that they're going to give for competitive jobs. They have competitive. Most of the jobs out there are competitive, and if you score high enough on the tests, you end up at the top of the list. And organizations like ours will first look at town of Islip residents for positions. Failing that, we'll look at the entire town and we'll look at the entire list. So if you do well on those tests, and you can see it's a very, very transparent process, you can land yourself a very nice job. There's good benefits. The pay could be better, but we're public servants, and we don't pay willy-nilly. We actually had to make some adjustments in some managerial salaries because we're having a hard time attracting and keeping people. But other jobs, it's a union job. You come here, it's got good benefits, it's got medical benefits, it's got retirement benefits, health care, eyes and dental insurance and things like that. So it is a very good job. And we would encourage people to go on the civil service website and take a look at the announcements for tests that are being given, and go in there and take the tests.
Those civil service tests that are advertised on their site,
Right.
It just does not cover the town of Islip. It goes for any municipality, school districts,
yep.
library districts, anyone that, comes within the confines of that, correct?
Correct. And it's the idea is to keep things fair.
Right.
That gives everybody an equal chance of trying to land one of these positions for themselves.
So I take a test for a clerk typist, and I score 93, and my name appears on a list.
Correct.
And I get called for an interview.
Right.
The town has openings, they call. How does that all work then?
We'll go down through the interview process. We'll interview a good chunk of the folks at the top of the list. We'll go through the job. You have
Just stop right there.
Yeah.
When you go to the names on the list, you have to start at the top of the list.
Yes, we do.
Isn't that how it goes?
That is correct.
So it's very strict.
Yes,
Okay.
very much so. And we'll go through the folks and bring them in for interviews. We get 2 opportunities to bypass individuals on the list. That's according to civil service rules. But other than that, if you waive the first 2, you have to take the third if they're interested in the job.
If they're interested.
If people aren't interested, they decline the position and they move on, and that's fine.
And that does happen too, because those lists, if you take a civil service test, the list comes out. How long are those lists good for?
Usually 4 years.
4 years. So someone that took a test 3 years ago and maybe scored 89 didn't get called year 1, year 2. Now all of a sudden they get called. They may already be in a position.
Correct.
Okay.
In a lot of cases, we'll come across folks, especially for some of these clerical titles, where they're working, say, in a school district or in a library, and they're not interested in coming to the town. We tend to pay a little less than them, to be frank with you, and it's a very straightforward process. And if they're interested in the position, we'll offer it, and then they come on in. We do screen people for criminal backgrounds, of course, but failing that, we move on, and they become one of our, part of our family.
So there is hope too for people who might not have scored 100 to stick with it, because
Absolutely.
and not everybody's a good test taker,
Correct.
because they didn't score 100 and they maybe scored 80 doesn't necessarily mean they can't be an exemplary employee and do a fantastic job.
I can't tell you how many people we have who did score a little lower, and they're fantastic people, and they do a wonderful job. So, yes, you couldn't be more right.
And likewise, too, I've seen it over the years that someone who might be in a position provisionally if there wasn't a list for a particular job. How does that work?
Well, if there's no test and we absolutely need somebody, we can apply for permission to put somebody in a job through civil service in what we call provisional status. And that is providing that they take the test, providing they pass the test, and providing they're reachable on the test, they can ultimately get the job. And you can imagine, I try to avoid that at all costs,
absolutely,
because I don't want to be in a position where somebody got a provisional job and 2 years later they take a test and everybody's fallen in love and adopted this family and this people and they become part of our family, and all of a sudden they're not reachable in the new test. So it's a little painful for us to do that, and I try to avoid that pain at all costs.
Yeah. Well, you are so very sensitive to people's feelings and needs, and I think that's what makes you so special in your role.
Thank you.
And, I'm looking at the time here. We're going to have to take another break, but I'd like to have you think about sharing with us what got you into that field. As I said, he's almost like Father Confessor. He could be a member of religious order.
There you go.
But how did you come to be the personnel director? We'll be back in a few minutes to Supervisor Spotlight. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And welcome back to Supervisor Spotlight. This is Angie Carpenter here at the studios in Long Island MacArthur Airport with our wonderful guest today, Arthur Abadi, who is the Director of Personnel, also our labor relations guru, and safety officer. You know, I asked, when we took the break, I asked Arthur to think about what propelled him to get into this field of human relations and personnel and being there for people. How did you get started?
You know, it's funny. You set out to do certain things in life, and life takes you in different directions. And my only advice to people is go for the ride and enjoy it. I never set out to be in this business. In my past life, I worked for another very large company, and they had a need for somebody in this role, and they selected me, and I did this for a number of years over there, more the labor relations stuff and some of the HR type work. And I found I really liked it. I really liked having an effect on people. I liked having good relationships with our employees and, frankly, their representatives from unions and the likes. You know, I found that we were able to keep things smooth between us all. There was always going to be disagreements. There's always going to be things like grievances and stuff. The trick is, how do you handle them, and do you take them personally? And do you really genuinely, you can't fake caring about people, and you of all people know that.
Yep.
You know, one of the things I brag about you with is how much you care about people. I think it's just wonderful to work for somebody like you. But when I retired from that role, and I still had kids in college, and this opportunity came up, so I came to the town, and I haven't regretted it for a minute. It's been really wonderful, and I'm finding that, you know, we are having an effect on people. And I see it in morale, and I see it things like we've spoken about, like some of the giving that goes on with our employees and the likes. It's a lot of fun. So I kind of look forward to getting into work and making a difference.
Well, you know, you touched on a couple of things that kind of triggered in me, you know, things I'd like you to share a little bit more. But one of them is, you know, you spoke about dealing with the unions, and we've got a few unions, and you are the person charged with negotiations on behalf of the town. And when I got there, I learned that, and I've only been the supervisor for about a year and a half, but when I got there in March of 15, learned that our contract for both our blue-collar and white-collar union members was going to be expiring at the end of the year. And
Correct.
It was so very important to me because I so many times saw in my years in county employment and just as a regular resident reading the newspapers that people went for years without a contract and morale was low and people felt under, appreciated, et cetera. And I actually charged Arthur with the task of let's get this settled. I want this settled before it expires.
And I have to say, for the first time in our history, for the first time in the town of Islip history, we closed a labor contract out early. And I saw this huge sigh of relief in the eyes of our employees. They knew now there'd be some degree of certainty going forward for themselves. So it was really the right thing to do. So I'm very proud of that as well.
Well, I thank you for all of your efforts on that behalf because, I got the sense that people were most appreciative of it. We certainly didn't give away the store. And when you talk about negotiation, nobody comes out of there feeling like I got them, Everybody felt like, they wish they had gotten a little bit more, But it's the art of negotiating.
But I also think that's the test of a decent deal, a decent contract, is if everybody walks out of there going, okay, I can live with this. Nobody walks out of there thinking that they got fleeced somehow, and everybody walks away feeling that, okay, it's a fair deal. And that's what we did. We didn't give a lot of money away to our employees, but I think we gave a reasonable increase to our folks. We never expected, frankly, the cap to come in this year as poorly as it did. I mean, we came in at the cap with this year was
0.68%.
0.68.
When it's supposed to be 2%.
And frankly, this year our labor contract went up 2%. It was not a huge giveaway, and now we have to deal with the fact that there's an impact, and we had to break the cap because of that, and several other things, other factors
put us
out
in that
there.
Position, sure.
But again, if you look at our taxes as a town, we're the lowest portion of your taxes, and that's kind of neat.
In any township across the county of Suffolk, of all the 10 towns, the portion of the town taxes attributed to, the township in a resident in the town of Islip is less than 4%, and less than any other township across the county. When you talked about the negotiating and everything, I think as someone who is in that role in a municipality, it gives you that much more of a challenge because you're not just dealing with the money of the shareholders or, the private company. You're dealing with taxpayer money.
Yeah, exactly.
And what we're negotiating on behalf of our employees, a lot of them, it's going to affect them because they're taxpayers too.
Exactly.
The vast majority of our employees live in the town of Islip.
Correct.
So, there's an awful lot that comes into play there that people don't realize.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to see how everything integrates and how everything works like a well-oiled machine when it comes together. The employees comfortable and believing that they got a reasonable deal. They seem to be a little happier and they work a little harder, and and then you start to see how all these jobs that I talked about earlier, the town runs better, and this town I can honestly say is running better today than it has since I've been here.
And I think the residents reap the benefit of that too. When
No
the town
question
runs better and the employees are happier, and we try to do little things. And I thank you so much because you helped with the outreach there. We provided for the first time ever, we brought someone in, actually Northwell Health, partnered with the town of Islip, and we had free flu shots for our employees, and it was really kind of cool.
And they were very happy to get them. It was very nice.
Yeah.
We have a very robust summer program in the town as well, and seeing all the folks, the services that we were able to provide to the community, as well as the ones we provide in all the other seasons. It's kind of nice to see everybody doing such a great job.
Yeah, it really, really is. And, part of Arthur's responsibility, he's charged with being the safety officer.
Correct.
And we've just got 2 minutes left. So tell me a little bit about what that means for someone to be the official safety officer for the town of Islip.
Well, it's about keeping people safe. It's about making sure our employees go home the way that they came, in good shape. It's about making sure that we provide all of the appropriate safeguards to them, including equipment, in their roles, and making sure that we're doing everything we possibly can. Again, even with the constraints that we have, we absolutely go out of our way to make sure our employees are safe, as well as the public. And I think that's very important. There's so much traffic coming in and out of our buildings, and we want to make sure every one of them have a great experience. In our place. We have occasionally somebody unfortunately gets injured. I actually will go to the scene of an accident 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, any kind of an issue, and try to make sure that we do a postmortem on the accident, try to find out what happened, what we can do to prevent it on a go-forward basis. And, it's a very, very interesting job, and it definitely keeps me busy.
Well, and we've had some of those conversations, once it's determined that everything is okay and the employee is safe, Arthur wants to know how it happened, and let's make sure it doesn't happen again. We are really very, very blessed in the town of Islip. I say that time and time again. I can't thank you enough for your incredible sense of caring about people. It comes through loud and clear. We've tried to do more. We've tried to provide more tools for our employees. As I said, the capital program, that was very, very important to get that passed, so that not only can we fix our roads and fix our parks, and Clemente Park is at the top of that list, but giving our employees the tools that they need to do their jobs properly and appropriately, and keep them safe.
And watching our people enjoy, not just, our public, the people that we serve, enjoy what we provide for them, it's just terrific.
And it is coming back. We get that kind of feedback from the residents. We get letters all of the time commending our employees, and we share that with the employees. We share it with the department heads, and certainly with you and your staff. So we are out of time. I can't thank you enough for coming and joining us today and sharing the wonderful world of labor relations and personnel.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you for watching.